Okay, welcome everyone. Just after lunch, so you're hopefully not in a food coma, and hopefully I can get you out of it. It's going to be a very interactive session. You can be amongst the NDC speakers. So if that is a desire that you've always had, now is your time. You can whip out your phone, go to this URL, enter some data, and you can actually be part of this demo. You can be part of the NDC lineup. We'll see why that is in a minute. Well, actually the session kind of like gave it away, right? We're going to build the NDC app live here on stage. Whatever you enter, because it puts a little bit of AI over it, right? I need to have AI, my boss, Microsoft, I need to put AI in everything now. So there we are. I've given it instructions to not let anything weird through, but please keep it family friendly. These sessions are recorded. Hi. And they will be on the YouTube channel. So, I would hate for the NDC channel to become R-rated. So let's just keep it family friendly, right? So you can be part of the speakerati here, and we'll see how that is going to come up here. But anyone, more serious question, like, is there any, I see a couple of familiar faces. Are there any speakers here or people who are like, maybe that's something I would want to do? No one? Probably because I'm up here and I'm a bad example, right? But I was just an attendee. There's no just an attendee because it's amazing that you're here and that your job allows you to be here. But when I was an attendee, I had no clue how this all went down, right? So there's going to be like no slides today, only live coding for this app, and we're going to see how this app comes to be. But before we do that, and while you enter all the details here, let me tell you a little bit about how that all works in the speakerati world, right? So there is this. Oh, there is slides. It was all fake. See, it's all show. It's all show. Okay. You're here, NDC London, and there's a lot of conferences, right? Not NDC. You have Techorama, which is amazing in Belgium and the Netherlands. Swedog is next week in Sweden. There's a bunch of others that I'm totally forgetting, right? There's a whole lot of them. But when that happens, that conference will just tell you like, hey, we have a place where we want to be. We have this kind of like topics, this general idea what we want to do. And we're looking for speakers. We're looking for sessions that we want to, have at our conference, right? And what they will do is put out a CFP or CFS, call for papers or call for speakers, or there's a couple of different names. And speakers can come in and say like, hey, I have this interesting, amazing session. You should see this. Everyone should see this. So you kind of like submit that to the conference, and they'll be like, yeah, that sounds interesting. That fits with what we want to do for this conference, so you can come. Now, before in old times, we would do that in Excel lists and Google Forms, and it was a big hassle, and you would have to have your own administration and the session abstracts written down and chiseled in stone, whatever. But along came a solution that is called Sessionize, which is kind of like a software as a service solution, which makes that so much easier. Now this one I couldn't get. I made this. Oh, there's no clock in here. I made this like yesterday, 11 p.m. So this CFP is closed, but this is how it would look like, except for the red bar that you can't submit anymore. So this is the one for London, right? It has a couple of details now. It shows like this is when the event is, this is when you can submit sessions, yes or no, and a whole bunch of things that they're looking for. It's a little bit small probably, but it tells you like, hey, here are some suggestions for topics, .NET, architecture and design, backend, frontend, all these things, right? Like you have some general ideas so that you're not kind of like submitting your tech talk to some kind of insurance conference, right? So because it's mostly, I know everything about tech, but I can imagine that Sessionize works for all the different branches out there, right? So you will submit to that, and typically if you follow this a little bit, you will see that the more popular conferences, the bigger conferences, will now get like, I don't know, what was the number for Techorama? I've seen something like 1,700 submissions. Well, they have like slots for like, I don't know, 100 or something. So there's this whole process that they have to go through, reading them all, and you have to bribe some people from time to time to get in, but it's fine. So they will have this whole system, right? And for the speaker side, it's cool too, because I can just, I have now a system where I can enter my sessions. I can administer them that way, and with a few clicks, I can submit them to all the conference, right? So that's great. But you, if you are like just an attendee, you probably might know them from this, right? If you're on social media, you've seen probably this, and then a lot of times from a lot of people who are like in the top 3% of things. No, I don't see people, because this is always like a storm in the new year where Sessionize says like, okay. So that's there, but what they also have is a very cool, with this whole Sessionize system, is a very cool API. And that is what the NDC app is using. Are you using the app, or are you just going to the website? Using the app? Oh, nice, very nice. So, okay, that app is there. And I was like, okay, this looks like, no disrespect to whoever built this, as it says here, Wyman Lee? I don't know. But this is, it's functional. It has the sessions, it has the speaker, it has the schedule, it has everything you need. But it's not super complicated, right? So we're going to see how far we can get in this hour to actually build this ourselves, but with .NET MAUI. Who here is Xamarin .NET MAUI developer? Who started with Xamarin? Oh, nice. Okay. Now .NET MAUI, yeah, okay, you're actually building apps with .NET. Who does not know what .NET MAUI is? Oh, okay. So I need to back up a little bit, then I'll do that whenever we get to the actual live coding. But this is kind of like what we want to build. We want to build the overview of the schedule, get the overview of the speakers, and then some tabs for like the venue and some general information, right? Now, to make this even more challenging for myself, I didn't just build a system where you can enter like your own information, but also I'm here for you, right? I can talk at you for this whole session, but I also want to hear from you what you actually want to see, right? Go faster, go slower. What actually is done at MAUI? Why is JavaScript better or worse? Like all these things, right? So if you go here, you'll have your hotline to me. That's why I have my second screen here. I hope it all will work. Maybe it's too distracting, or maybe it will all break down. We'll figure that out. And you can go here, and I will see the messages coming in. So I don't know if it's going to be too distracting. I'm probably not going to do everything. Gerald, we love you. Okay, interesting. We're going to vote all green. Okay, well, it's fine. Thank you for the messages. So if you go there, you can send me a message. You can basically just, this is not going to show up anywhere, so this cannot be family friendly. If you hate me, you can tell me here. But, hello, see, okay, nice. Whenever you have a question or whatever, you can put it here, and I'll try to put that into this thing here. Okay, now for real, we're going to go to my screen share, no more slides, and we're just going to do this. So what I'm just going to do, so there's a couple of people who don't know what .NET MAUI is. Well, here in Visual Studio 2022, you can just create a new .NET MAUI application. That's what we're going to do from scratch. And .NET MAUI is our offering, because I'm a software engineer on the .NET MAUI team at Microsoft, is our offering for building cross-platform apps based on C# and .NET. So you can build apps for iOS and Android, because that's what the NDC app supports, right? But with my app, I can also support Windows and macOS, and even Tizen, right? So you can roll it out to more platforms than the NDC app. So after this session, basically, they're going to hire me to redo the app, and we're going to do all the things. Okay, cool. So you can just, if you install the right thing, if you go to the installer, there's a checkbox for .NET MAUI multi-platform app UI. That's the full name, .NET MAUI. Check that, add that as a workload to your Visual Studio, and it should pop up inside of it, and you can just start playing with it, because that's how it works. So right now, create a new project. You can see I have one open here already for like cheating whenever I get stuck here, because it's all going to be improvised. And you see I experiment with a lot of things, but if you go looking for here, you have like MAUI, you have a couple of things. So .NET MAUI app, and the way kind of like MAUI works is it's going to take all the abstract layer, because we put an abstraction layer on top of there, right? Because we want to build for all these platforms, we have to have some kind of abstraction. And then whenever you specify that button, it will translate to however a button should look like on iOS or Android or whatever. And of course, you can style it to look the same way across all of these platforms. Then you also have like .NET MAUI Blazor hybrid app. Let's see if I can, I'm usually on a Mac, so let's see if I can get the zoom controls to work here. Oops, not there. You can also have like a Blazor hybrid app, and that way you will still have a .NET MAUI app. You can still use all of your device sensors, but you can write your whole application or parts of your application in Blazor. So that's very cool too. If you have like an existing Blazor investment, you have a Blazor application already, but your boss forces you to have that app in the App Store, this is your go-to place how to do it, right? That's how to do it. And then, of course, a class library, and this is like a solution with like a backend and a frontend for Blazor. There's all kinds of variations here. But we're going to look at the regular .NET MAUI app. There's really no such thing, but here we are. MAUI app 2, let's call this NDC schedule. I don't know, let's make it something like that. Schedule. Let's do that next. .NET 9. Yes. Okay. While I'm here, for the people who already are working with .NET MAUI, I get issues. I'm a software engineer on the .NET MAUI team. I get issues, and people are like, I'm on .NET 8. This thing doesn't work. I expect to fix on .NET 8 because it's LTS, right? Little service announcement here. .NET MAUI does not participate in kind of like the standard LTS STS release for .NET. .NET MAUI always goes out of support 6 months when the next major version comes. So 2025, May, .NET 8 for .NET MAUI is going to be out of support. You want to be on the latest version always, because we depend on like what Xcode does, what Android does. We cannot guarantee that all that stuff will work for the older .NET versions. For who is this new information? That also find it kind of useful. Okay, perfect, yes. Because this is something I get all the time, and I get it, it's super confusing, but it's important stuff. Okay, so we have this new checkbox here since a while in the file new template. If you're like super new, for the couple of people there with .NET MAUI, and you're like, oh, I want to see like a full sample, check this box, and you will get like a full application, which is kind of like a variation of the to-do app, which includes like controls from Syncfusion that we recently partnered with that have a bunch of controls that are now free, and you will get like this full functioning app, which is a to-do app, and you can start playing with that and see how it all fits together. But for now, I don't want to do that because that will mean that I have to delete a whole bunch of stuff, and I want to build something from scratch, basically. So I'm just going to create that, and we're going to see this project. And actually, I'm just going to start run it from here because there's a couple of things, right? We can do this for all the platforms. So I can start this on Windows, which is kind of like the easiest way. Like if you're developing, you can develop this all on a Mac using Visual Studio Code. Right? We have since a while Visual Studio Code support. You just have to install the .NET MAUI extension on that, and you can do this all on a Mac as well. And then you can build like well, you can build iOS apps through here too. But the only kind of like thing that you can do from here is build the macOS app. You have to do that on a Mac. And the same for Windows, right? You cannot build your Windows app on a Mac as well. So if you want to do that, then you have to use a Mac. And kind of like if you want to develop for the Mac or for Windows, then the easiest kind of like debug target to go to is Windows or Mac. That will just make you the fastest iteration, because else you will have to work with like the iOS simulator or the Android emulator. And that will take some time to spin up. But we want to have that companion app for NDC, right? So I want to show you this on Android. That's the easiest to set up here. I could connect this Windows machine to my Mac right here. And then you would have like the simulator here on your screen too. That's all options that you can have. And I can use my Mac to kind of like remote all the iOS stuff to here, but you still need that Mac machine. That's a little bit too complicated, and I'm not going to trust the conference network here to actually be able to handle that. So I'm just going to go with like Android. So you can just go to Android emulators here, click the right one, and you have to set it up first, of course. We'll help you with that when you do Visual Studio. But then you can just say, hey, I want to run this application now on Android. You can flip it around to Windows, and you will get the same application, but of course, like how it should look like on a desktop, right? So while we're waiting for this, hey, look, it's the NDC logo right here. See? Cool. That was not planned, but it's there. So here you have like your project setup. And, you know, if you've not been familiar, since like there were a couple of people who did Xamarin, right? Xamarin Forms specifically too. So you then remember like we have all the different project heads, right? So you will have the shared project where you want to have all of kind of your shared code. And then you would have a project for running on iOS, running on Android, running on Windows. Would make sense, right? Because at the end of the day, you still have to have all these separate apps for the different platforms. But now with .NET MAUI, we have a single project approach. So you will have all this code for all the platforms really in a single project, which makes it, you know, if you're coming from the Xamarin world, it's a little bit of a mind bender. Like you have to change the way you think about a couple of things. But if you're used to it, then it makes it so much easier. And especially what makes it easier is like all your resources, you can now share those. So your images, you just have to specify those once, right? Instead of like all the times with all the gazillion different resolutions and stuff there. So that makes it so much easier. And if you still need to write that platform-specific code, you can go here in the platforms folder. Then you have like per platform a folder right here with all the metadata, right? You have the manifest right here where you need to include all the permissions and the description of your app and the name and whatever, how it's going to show up on your home screen and that kind of stuff. So all that stuff is there. And if if there's something not covered by .NET MAUI, we can only surface so much of the platform, the underlying platform APIs. You can still go in there and access that API through still C# and .NET, but you will have to know a little bit about like the Android and the iOS namespaces. But you look like a smart audience, so you can figure that out if needed. But you can get very far. You can build this whole NDC app without even having to touch that. Did I talk long enough to get here? No. Cool. All right, let's see this ride for a little bit. Oh, there we go. It's coming. It's coming. And then if you if you hate XAML, you're going to have a bad time. XAML is still kind of like our go-to thing. So even kind of like the empty project still gives you a couple of things. There has been open an issue where someone kind of like gave us the idea of like, hey, maybe you want to add a really, really empty option. I think other .NET projects are doing it now. I see a couple of people, yeah, we want that. I don't want to delete all that stuff. So that's something that we're kind of like considering. I'm just going to open a pull request and see what happens. But right now, if you would do this, you will still get a little bit of kind of like sample data, which is very easy to kind of like clean up. Just to give you an example of like, hey, what does your file new app look like, and what is things that you can think of and start playing with. So we have this scroll view to make sure that whenever something goes out of view, you can kind of like scroll it. You will have a vertical stack layout. You will have this image, a label, and a button, right? And because of the vertical stack layout, it will all be stacked nicely vertically. And then all the properties and that kind of stuff. And then we have like a bunch of styling here in the resources set up for you as well. So I'm just going to use that. I'm not going to bother too much with it. But we have like all kinds of styles. We have a very extensive styling engine in like XAML that you can just use. And you can see that it's automatically targeted for labels. So it's going to look nice out of the box. But if you want to style that all yourself, that's totally something that you can do. And I saw a comment here from purple. So, maybe we should, it's going to be a lot of purple in this style right here. So there we go. Did I talk long enough already? Oh my goodness, still not. Okay. This is hopefully a one-time problem because the Android emulators are just slow at times. But once you get kind of like that first deploy going, the other ones are much faster. And it seems like it's not even deploying anything anymore. It's just waiting for this to start up. So that's going to be fine. Perfect. So, and whenever we get that, we can start implementing the things. And as kind of like good .NET developers, I'm not going to over-architect and abstract all the things, and there's going to be no interfaces beside the user interface. But we're probably going to start with kind of like the service, right, to actually pull in the data. So what I kind of like did is I prepared an endpoint that I reversed engineered a little bit. I was talking to the Telerik people a little bit earlier, or Progress, I should say, and they have Fiddler, right? Who still remembers that tool, but it's still a tool. You can still download it because I did. And then I connected my phone and set it up as a proxy. And if you do that for the NDC app, you can just figure out what the API is. Because Sessionize is like super easy, right? Like the data is pretty much static, so they have good caching on their side. They even see it in their API documentation, so it's not really like misusing anything. But I figured out like what their API is, and I got all of that data, and I now augmented it with all of you, because you all did it, right? You all entered a little bit of data as a speaker there too, so we're going to pull that in. So this is going to be like your default template MAUI app running on Android, right? So you can increment things because that's what you do in file new templates. Okay, so let's get started with actually first maybe the models because we're going to have to pull in speakers and sessions. So that's kind of like a little bit boring, right? So I prepared that a little bit. Let's do models right here and add a new class. Let's make it speaker first. And I made that a little snippet, so I think I can remove this one. And I can say, what did I call it? Speaker class, see, tab. You know about snippets, right? I can also do it with property. You have the little keywords that you can do here, and then you do tab, like the tab key, and it will generate this whole thing with a bunch of red squigglies, apparently. So we have this speaker class, and I also like my file scope namespaces, so let's just do it like this. And this is unhappy because I still need to have the system text.json in here. Then it will be much happier, hopefully. Or maybe when we can get it to build. So this is kind of like, there's not much to it. A speaker is just name a company. It's usually called like a tagline. You can put other stuff in there. A bio, right? A little bit about yourself. Like, hey, I'm Gerald. I'm this amazing software developer at Microsoft working on .NET MAUI. And an image URL. Okay, so I should have said that. If you if you also added a picture, it's probably not going to work. I figured out that was a bug in like the little submission system for yourself. So it's just going to show a placeholder. I was not bold enough to try and fix that bug right before the session. But so, there we have it. That's in serialization. Okay, that's much better. And then let's do the same thing for the sessions too. So let's add this session model in here. Oh, did it through new item now, that's fine. Session, and I have this session class in here. Tab, boom. Okay. So you don't want to watch me type all this model code, right? Like that's boilerplate code. That's not really fun to watch. So here we go. And I'll remove the whole namespace. I have this namespace. What did I call it? NDC schedule right here. Boom. Okay. Dot models. Let's do it. Dot models. Perfect. So now we got all of this, and the session is like a title, abstract, and then I added like the room and starts at, ends at, right? Like that's the important information. You want to know where you want to be at what time. Cool, but now we need to actually pull that data in. So I created a couple of endpoints for that. I pushed it all in my own server for it. So just like the short links that you have, you don't have to go to this one. I have .fyi slash what do we call it? Server, little cheat sheet here, speaker. And if I go there, it probably needs to spin up because I have the free Azure thing here, pretty print, there we go. So we have sessions in here, right? Like a whole bunch because this is pulling in the actual NDC data. So there's a whole bunch of speakers in here, sorry. So we have all these speakers. And then the same thing for the sessions, right? So we have session endpoint 2 to get all the sessions. Perfect. Now, maybe you already recognize your name in here. Join John Versluis. You might know him. That's me. So someone used my name because this is not me. With a bunch of like AI-generated biographies and sessions, right? So let's see how we can actually get that into our application. So as a good .NET developer, what you do, you create a service, right? That's what we do. We create all kinds of services with that we then gonna dependency inject and all those kinds of stuff. So let's do the service. And class, and let's name it NDC service, right? NDC service. Cool. Let's make it public. Everything's public. Everything's open source. It's fine. And then public NDC service. I don't know if we need that one, but what I do want to have is like a private const string. Also, a little disclaimer: the code that I'm about to write here does not represent our quality at Microsoft necessarily. It's just demo code, okay? Schedule URL, yeah, well, I need the speaker URL, basically, there we go. What was it? HTTPS, because we're not animals, Gerald.fyi, .fyi / server speaker. Okay, I think that was it. Then we want to have public list, let's make it a list of speaker. We want to get those speakers back, get speakers, sounds good. Is then AI going to give me something useful? No, pretty much. All right, let's do it. You probably don't want to create a new HTTP client all the time, but hey, for this demo, again, disclaimer, it might work. So there we go. And I probably need to await this. Why is it mad? Await, async, task, do all the things, right? Make it a little bit more responsive. That wasn't it. var speakers is anyone? No, the speakers are not good. No, it's just deserialize async. Oh my goodness, I can't type under pressure. Why did I sign up for this? Okay. Oh, there we go. Content. It's not null here. Zoom. We need more zoom. Okay, I'll do that in a second. That's true. What was the initial error thing here? Okay, that one. Okay, let me zoom in a little bit. That's better for people? Perfect. What does it say? Possible null reference. No, I trust my code. It's not null. It's fine. There you go. Boom. It's not null. Okay, so this should get us the speakers, right? This will get us the list of speakers. So let's see if we can actually make that work. So in our main page, let's just do this main page right here. I don't need all of this because I can use a collection view, right? A collection view is our control for showing lists of data, which is kind of like the foundation for a lot of apps, right? Also for this NDC app, because we're going to show lists of speakers and sessions. So we're just going to do that, and then we have this whole bunch of like, hey, MVVM stuff that we can do, data binding stuff that we can do if that's something that you want to know. See, I see zoom here. I'm not paying attention to this at all. So you can use all of that with this collection view right here. And if that's something you want to learn about, please don't let me know here, just shout. That works much better. So I can say, hey, item source is binding speakers, right? So I'm going to have a thing, apparently, that is speakers, and that's going to be the item source for this collection view. Now, if we want to do it really, really properly, actually, let's do it. It's fine. I'm going to say add new folder. If we're going to do a little bit of MVVM, we want to have view models, and then create a view model in here. Again, we're .NET developers. We like this stuff. And we're going to say, what was it? What I was going to say? Speakers first. Speaker view. Actually, I have to say because it's main page, right? So main page view model. Let's do it like that. We probably want to rename it at some point because this is not really descriptive of what it is. But again, demo code. Okay, so we have this view model with an actual typo here. So, and then we can do prop, right? The other snippet right here. And we probably want to make this an observable collection so that it actually, you know, whenever data changes, it knows about the changes and it will update the UI. Observable collection of speaker to, you know, and I'm going to call that speakers. There we go. Let's import the right namespace here. Gotcha, speaker, yeah, is, let's initialize it, right? So now we have this new observable collection of speakers in our view model. Now, if you go back to our main page, we can here delete all of this. We don't need that. And then delete this count right here. And we want to have that view model, right? So again, you want to probably, well, let me just show you actually here. MAUI program, we can do this through dependency injection, right? We can say, builder is all built in. If you've been working with ASP.NET, ASP.NET Core, this should all look very familiar, right? We kind of like adopted their way of doing things. So you can say builder.services.add. And in this case, we want to probably do add transient. No, for the NDC service, we can do it too, but we want to have probably a single for that. And then for the view model, we want to have builder.services.add transient for main page view model, right? Poop, got that. Okay, perfect. We registered that. So that should be automatically injected whenever we kind of like request it here from our main page. So here I can just now say main page view model, do it right here. Well, actually, I don't need it here right now. And don't forget, this is always something that gets me still after all these years. Binding context is this, right? If you forget that, your whole data binding and stuff doesn't work. Who does not know when I talk about like data binding and MVVM stuff, things? Because that's a whole topic by itself. People who've been in a workshop with me know that I can talk like 90 minutes straight about MVVM and data binding. That's the whole thing. But it seems like you're all good. So you know what this is about. And then, you know, we've got this wired up. And now what this means is if I go back to my example, we have this data binding set up, and it's going to look for speakers, and it's going to look for that speaker's property inside of that view model, right? So it's going to find this, and it's going to read the speakers from that, and it's going to list that inside of that collection view. If you want to make it even more awesome, we need to set this to X data type is, actually we need to import the namespace right here. So kind of like these things, if you're like, what's this XML and S thing? what was I going to do? View model. This is kind of like you're using, but then written in XAML, right? So you maybe mindlessly just add them because you need to. But this is kind of like you're using for how you write it in XAML. So if you want to do this in view models, so basically what you're saying is like you don't have to write out this whole thing the whole time for every object that you want to use in XAML. You can just use this little alias right here. And now I can say X data type is view model. Yeah, that one actually. And what this says is it enables compiled compiled bindings. Because what will happen with a lot of XAML originally is that it gets like interpreted at runtime, and you will have all these errors, and you can have like a little typo in here, speak errors, and you will have the hardest time figuring out like why your stuff isn't working until you finally spot that typo. But now with compiled bindings, which you just enable by setting like, hey, this is the data type, so this main page view model is what the object that's being used throughout this whole page, and you can set an X data type on a lower level node too to kind of like narrow the scope down. And now it knows like, oh, this type is being used here, and I know the properties of that type, right? So if I start typing it, you can see, hey, we have speakers. And if I already take it to the next level and I say, hey, I want to have the same thing, but for sessions, well, not sessions here, but sessions here. We already got that set up now. And you can see like, hey, it starts using this IntelliSense, and you can also see the sessions, right? So I have the speakers and the sessions because it knows it's using this main page view model to read whatever there is. And it will now also at build time say to you like, hey, this property doesn't exist. I don't know what you mean. You probably want to check that. So that's a good thing. And also like it's then more performant at runtime. So we have this thing. See, there's a typo already. Speakers, and it's going to list all the speakers in this collection view. Now, actually, did I hook everything up? Not yet. So in this view model, we then probably want to have some kind of like that. Let's do public void, I don't know, load speakers. Let's do it like that. Again, not really super representative, but it works. And then here we want to actually have, oh, that's interesting. Mats is here, Miguel, not so much, but it's interesting that this is suggested. That's cool. Let's add a constructor because we also had that service, right? So let's do public main page view model. We want to get the NDC service in here. NDC service, so that gets injected automatically. Let's do that. Yeah, we don't have this yet. Private, read only. I always like to make it read only, like then that means you can only set it from like the constructor. So just you don't accidentally overwrite it or whatever. So let's have that. NDC service, that's great. And now what we can do here is say get speakers, and then for each we're going to add that to that speakers thing right here, and we probably want to do speakers.clear first. So if you're going to do this and work with observable collections, maybe if you've already built an app, you know that if you're going to kind of like initialize a new observable collection, it's going to lose all the data binding stuff, and you have to set the data binding again. So what you typically want to do is say collection.clear and then kind of like build it up again so that, you know, it gets notified of all the new data that is in here. Okay, so we got that. Then we need to call this from our little main page thing here. It's not async, so I'm not sure if this is gonna, oops. Load speakers. Let's just load the data like this. Okay, let's see what happens. The thing that should happen now is that we're going to see this collection view, which is not really styled, so we're not going to see a lot. But it knows the item source. So what we're going to see is it will list the speakers, but it doesn't really know how to show it, right? So what it does then is it just calls the toString. So what we should probably see is a whole list of like NDC schedule dot models dot speaker. That's it, right? That's the toString of an object. It just lists out the namespace and the object name, and that's it. So how can we kind of like make that prettier, right? So while this is loading and we can see that this is actually the thing that's going to happen, let's just take it a step further already and see how we can kind of like make that better. So for that, you want to use item templates. So we can do collection view, whoops, collection view dot item template. And this template is something that is going to be applied to each object that is in the item source. So in this case, each speaker will get applied this kind of like template. And then you can do whatever you want, right? Inside of this, we need to use a data template first. But inside of that, you can do any layout that you want. You can put grids in there, stack layouts, labels, all the things, and you can make it up whatever you want. Keep in mind, the more complex your layout is going to be, the more that's going to eat into your performance, right? So it's going to be like janky scrolling or whatever if you're going to do all kinds of complex things. But you can make it a little bit nicer. Oh, I see what's happening here. So our tooling is too good. That's basically what's happening here. Because as I was typing, it was already updating the code. And now it was not showing anything. See, so this was the thing I predicted. Like we have all the speakers here, and these are the actual speakers coming from our service. But we can't tell which is which, right? So if I keep this running, and you can see it here on the right, it's probably a little bit small too. But as I'm going to update this, by the means of hot reload, we have C# hot reload that will allow you to write C# code while we're debugging, and we also have XAML hot reload that will allow us to write more XAML and do the thing, so we don't have to stop and wait for that whole deployment on Android, which takes long. We can just edit it now, and most of the things will get applied to this actual thing here. So you can see, like, I have this empty data template, so it's all there, but you just can't see it, right? So let's do, I don't know, let's do a grid. It's probably what we want to do with, like, hey, 2 columns, column definition of 100 and star. So we take 100 and then the rest. And then inside of that, we want to do an image, which is going to be in grid.column 0 and grid.row 0. So it's like in the top left. And what do we want to do with that? I want to make it self-closing. That looks nicer. It does the same, but it looks nicer. And let's just say source is, and now it's going to be interesting, right? Because we changed kind of like the scope. Again, I can talk forever about MVVM and data binding. I love it. But here, kind of like your speakers is looking at the main page view model, right? But now here, it's going to look at one object inside of that collection. So it's going to look at one speaker. So what you want to do here is that scope, X data type, is, actually we need to import it here. I'm not sure if hot reload is this advanced, but let's find out. XML and S, I'm going to add a new one. Models is speaker, please find it now. All right, CLR namespace. Did I make a typo anywhere? No. Namespace, NDC schedule.models. Did I not say that? No, I just said speaker, that's why. Okay, so models, and now I can say speaker. There we go, speaker, boom. And now this same trick applies, right? Like it knows it's about a speaker, so I can say binding, and I have that image URL, right? Bloop. And boom, there we go. Image is starting to load. And like I said, oh, there's one person who's wearing sunglasses. There we go. That worked. So your phone is amazing. It's iOS, right? Oh, yeah. Okay, no, but for some reason there's a bug there. I need to figure that out. But the other ones are there too, like with placeholders. So I'm not sure why it works and when not. But here we go. We have the images, right? So we have all the speakers here, and I made it so the API so that we have like the ones that you submitted on the top, and then all of kind of like the rest of the NDC London crew down here. It's not scrolling for some reason. We'll figure that out later. And then what it can do, it's also nice to kind of like know the name, right? So name, label, text is, and then we can again do binding. Did I call it name? There we go. And we want to make this grid dot row still 0, and then grid dot column is 1, right? So that it shows up on the other side. Not sure why it's not happening. Cool. So maybe something's going wrong. We'll see what happens if we rerun it. And then, you know, maybe make it a little bit bigger too. Text, font size, that is, like 20. Attributes, make it bold. That's a little bit nicer. And then we also had company, right? So let's just, let me type it, label text. Text is binding company. There we have that one. which is then grid row 1, column 1. I'm not sure why it's not showing up. That's interesting. I saved it. I'm gonna hit the icon too and do all the things now. Weird. Let me run it again. So what we should see is now, the image on the one side, you can imagine, right? Like, and then on the other side, we'll see the name and kind of like the company as kind of like the dummy data in here. And we should have a list that we can kind of like scroll through. We got the data. We got all this speaker stuff in here. Now, kind of like the next thing is, that's nice, but you can see kind of like our default layout in this template is we have this flyout menu right here, which is not in the official NDC app. And this is kind of like part of what you like, right? Or what your requirements are, or what your boss wants you to do. You can definitely put it in that flyout menu, but whenever it's kind of like 4 or 5 items, I want to have like the bottom tabs, right? You just have a couple of tabs, as we saw in the NDC app as well. So let's see how we can kind of like do that. With .NET MAUI, we now have a concept that is called shell. That makes it super easy to set all these things up. And you just have to specify like, hey, I have this tab bar with this tab, title, icon, and this is the content, right? This is the page that you need to load in there, and then you can add all the tabs. Same thing, if you want to switch that around to like a flyout, you say, hey, flyout menu, flyout item, do the same thing, and it will show up in that flyout menu without having to specify all these different things. So it's kind of like your opinionated implementation of how the layout should be done and making it super easy for you to do. But it's built on .NET MAUI layouts and controls. So if you still want to use like a tabbed page or a flyout page, they're still there. We just populate them in a certain way for you whenever you use shell. If you're like, none of that, I have my own opinions, you throw that all out and you do like the basic pages and you start building from there. I broke the whole thing now. I'm not sure what's going on. So if you want to do that, we go kind of like back to the app shell right here. And you can see right now we have this one thing, right? We have the shell content, right? And this is kind of like our main shell app thingy going on. And here is kind of like where you can influence that flyout behavior. So you can set this to disabled, you can set it to locked so that you will always see the menu right here, or just flyout, right? And then it determines the behavior of like, hey, we have that hamburger menu, or whenever you kind of like rotate it to landscape or you're on a tablet, it will always show, right? It will determine that based on the platform that you're running on and what the default behavior is there. But I want it disabled, I don't want to see it, I don't need it right here, because I want to use tabs. So what we can then do is say, hey, tab bar, we're going to have one tab. And inside the tab, we can then have this shell content. And the shell content is then your representation of a page. Right, let's make it here, speakers. And I think you can here say then the title is speakers. I don't think it both works, but just to be sure. And then you can set an icon, right? And that's where kind of like the single project comes in. I can now just go out to, I found this cool website and I thought it was super free, but it turns out it's not as free as they want to pretend it to be. Iconic, they have like 200 free icons, which is of course amazing because work went in here. We need to reward people for that. But I thought it was like all free, but of course it wasn't. You also have pro. And of course the ones that I want are pro. I don't know how they figured that stuff out. But they figure out that the ones that I want are pro. But anyway, here we go. So you can just get one, and I think the calendar one, maybe that was free. Oh, let's do a person or something because we were looking at speakers. A person, do we have a person? Crowd? See, pro, of course. Pro. User, yes, okay. We're going with that one because it's free. And I think like the license on this is like, hey, you can do whatever you want with it, so that's cool. So I'm gonna copy this, and I can just put that into my Visual Studio right here. Under Resources, Images, I can just paste it in here, and it's an SVG, right? So that's kind of interesting because it will not end up as an SVG inside of your application. What we do at compile time is we will take that SVG because it scales to infinity and beyond, right? And we will scale that to all the kinds of different things. So if you're familiar with cross-platform development, which you probably are, then you know that you have to make all these different resolutions for all the different view factors of phones and tablets and whatever, right? But because you're providing us with an SVG, we can do that for you. So what happens at compile time is that you will, we will scale it to all the different variations that you need, and you don't need to worry about it. But it has this weird kind of like side effect that we still kind of like need to figure out, that you have to say here, icon is user.png. The IntelliSense fixed it somehow. I don't know how, what magic this is, but it helps at least because it will end up as a PNG. So that's a good thing to kind of like know. But now when we have this, it should show the little user.png as a tab with the title speakers, and we should get all of our speakers right here. And we have a route, right? So whenever we say navigate to main page, we will end up in this page from somewhere else in our application. I'm not sure if we're going to get to that because I'm burning through time really quickly. But yeah, if you say like, hey, shell.go to, you can specify this route and it will know which page to kind of like take you to. This is completely stuck. So that's cool. Build, cancel. Let's try it again. If it's just going to have one tab, we're not even going to see it. So because it's like, oh, there's one tab, I'm not going to show you a tab bar for that. So what we want to do is create the second tab, which is then for the sessions, I would think, sessions. I'm just going to keep it user for now. I'm not going to bother you. You figured out how to make this work. So let's do this. Let's format that a little bit better. And we want to have an actual new page. So let's right click here, add, and this is not going to work. Oh, it's going to work because it's compiling. Okay, perfect. New item. And then you have this little section here with .NET MAUI, right? So you have a bunch of stuff that you can add. You can do it with C#, right? I saw a comment in here with like, hey, XAML, there's people who hate XAML vigorously. So you can do everything in C# if you want to. It's not necessarily going to make your life happier. But everything you want to do you can do in XAML, you can do in C#, right? And there's little helpers. We have the C# markup extensions that will have a little bit more fluent syntax to help you with that. But typically, all the samples, most of the samples that you will find are in XAML. And then we have a couple of helpers for you. You can add a new window because you can now have multi-windows. But I just want a plain content page, right? That just adds like a simple new page that I can start filling again with a little bit of sample to help you get started again. So I should have probably not named this new page, but that's fine. So this is going to be the sessions, right? Sessions. And I kind of like can do the exact same thing here, but now I want to get the sessions from here. So let's go back to, do I have it still open? The main page right here, and I can copy most of this, but now I want to see the sessions. So you want to kind of like have the same thing, but now show a little bit of different details, right? Do we have an image for that? No, not really. So we can get rid of that one. And then maybe just make this a vertical stack layout. There we go. No image. I guess I could show the speaker, but I don't really have a connection between the models right now. So if you want to do that, you can figure it out. Nice exercise for you at home. And here we're just going to have not the name, but I think it's a title. And then the abstract, right? And we don't need all the abstract. We don't need all the grid stuff in here. And this is now a session instead of a speaker, and we need to add that little thingy here, right? XML, NS, model, what do we call it? Models is models. There we go, and the view models too. See, AI is going to save us. Perfect. And then add this X data type. Oh, I love this. It wasn't the correct one, actually. Data type is view model dot. Oh, I don't have the other view model. So, you know, it can predict only so much. It's just because I'm dumb. It can't fix that. So, okay. I need to add a new one for that. We can basically copy that one to class, sessions, view model, naming conventions are out the door now too. Public. Again, the same typo. Wow, that's consistent at least. Session view model. Oh, I was going to do it here in the same thing. No, that's not right. That one. Copy this, but now get the sessions. Oh, that's interesting. I had this right. No. Oh. Using NDC schedule.models. Yes, I don't know why it's not. suggesting that, and then I need the NDC service here, and we're back up and running for this one too. Cool. Oh, I don't have that one. That's fine. That's fine. Cool, cool, cool. Okay, we need to just implement that one. And I need to figure out why this is not building, because this is not helpful. Bless you. I think the emulator is just stuck. Oh, thank you. Everything's breaking down. All right, cool. NDC service, there we go. Get sessions. Can we get AI to do this one? Do you think? NDC service, I think so, because it got this one pretty all right. So public list session get sessions. Yes, amazing. Saves me from some typing. And it already picked up that I'm an awesome programmer. It's not null. Okay, cool. So we got that one. That was pretty easy. URL. Thank you. Wow, you're helpful. That's amazing. Session URL. There we go. Now we're on the road again. Cool. There we go. So we got all this. Is the Android emulator coming up again? Maybe for funsies, I can just do it on Windows 2 now, just to show you that it deploys there too. Let's see if this works first. So what we should see, we now have, did I add the extra tab too? So we should have this navigation now, kind of like for free, because we said like, hey, we have a tab bar, 2 tabs in there, and we should automatically be able to switch between those. And because we set the whole thing up, besides the data binding, I realize now, we like, you know, can have this already basically the 2 most complex screens with like lists of sessions and speakers, right? So there we have that. And let me see if I can quickly go in here. I made the view model, but I didn't. There's a couple of things I need to do. Register it here, which was the session view model. And then get that in here. Session view model. Set the binding. Context. Condition, no, almost. Yes. And then yes. Cool. I'm not sure if it did all that. Oh, it's okay. So while we have that, like, are there people who use like the MVVM toolkit? It's not the official name, but that's yeah, okay. We know what that is. So there's like a bunch of community toolkits, which are really amazing. So we have one for .NET MAUI, .NET MAUI community toolkit, and those projects are kind of like, you know, community. It's in the name, right? That's built by the community as an open source project that kind of like fills the gaps that the official product kind of like not do, or as helpers or whatever. So we have the .NET MAUI one. There's the Windows community toolkit since forever. That's kind of like where it all began. But now I think we also have like a general .NET one for if it's not specific for Windows or not specific for .NET MAUI. And this includes like the best MVVM framework since forever, which like uses source generation, which is super cool. And then you don't have to kind of like specify all those I notify property chains and observable collections and blah, blah. You can just add kind of like attributes on top of your properties and say, hey, this is a property that, or this is a field that should have a public property that is going to change, right? And you can use that for your data binding stuff too. So that's like a super cool helper that saves you for like a lot of boilerplate code to write that AI can do for now too. But you know, it's a super nice helper for you to kind of like do that. So let's see if this finally comes up. Oh, there we go. Well, okay, I'm not sure what I messed up, but here we go. It's showing something, and it's scrolling. It's a little bit janky because this machine is, you know, is a little bit underpowered, but here we go. So you can see that we have sort of already mimicked kind of like this amazing app. Did I mess up like the columns and the grids? What's going on here? I didn't have rows. See? Do you just maybe want to come up here and do it? I mean, you're better than me. I mean, I'm forgetting half this stuff. Where do I go? Main page. This is in the main page. I didn't have the row. I do have the row. I don't have row definitions. That's it. Why didn't AI do that for me? Row definitions. Let's make it star and star, right? So they're even distributed. Hot reload does it for me. Yes. Okay. Perfect. I mean, that's it's fine. It's fine. What I can do now is kind of like play with the labels right here and say vertical options. Let's make this end. It kind of like says like where does it position within the layout. And I can say with this one, vertical options is start. And then it kind of like brings it a little bit nicer together, right? So it's like, I don't know what this is doing, but it's fine. So it at least brings kind of like these two together. I'm not a designer, okay? I'm a coder. We have people for this. So you know you can create your own layout. And if I now go to the sessions, we should also probably also with a messed up layout get like we get the speakers. That's interesting. Oh, because I'm still going to the same page. That makes sense. Okay, it's fine. So if we go to, I forgot one thing here. In the app shell, you can see that it says like, hey, content template. So that's also why it took a while, right? It was loading the data only when you were going to it. So it's not kind of like loading all the data all together for all the tabs, which is like a terrible thing to do. But it's set up like a template, right? So only when you're going to it, it's actually going to load the data. And what has happened now is you can see I specified this data template for, again, the main page. So we have the same page in 2 different locations, right? So what you want to have here, it's called new page, which is terrible, but that will be at least the other page, and then the route should be something else too. So we have like sessions right here, and now it should all be okay. So I only have a couple of minutes left. Let's see if we can quickly get the navigation in here. So it would be cool that if you kind of like click a user or click a session, that you can go to the details page and actually see the details of what it has been doing, right? So we have the speakers right here. I can scroll. We have the sessions right here. Come on. Please. Maybe it just takes a while. I don't know what this is. Oh, no, I don't know what this is. There it is. Oh, you didn't see that one, did you? Aha. Still giving me things. So it's not. Oh, I didn't set the X data type. That's also why it wasn't helping me. So view model X data type is view model. Sessions. There we go. And now it should know. Oh, we have sessions. Okay, perfect. Perfect. So now it should show up. And what you want to do if you're going to navigate, so the details page are not going to have like a dedicated tab or anything, right? That will be weird. So we need another way to kind of like register our routes here. Now you can do that in different places, but kind of like what makes sense is do it here in the app shell. Yes. Normally they applaud here, but it's fine. So spontaneous, isn't it? So what you can do here is say routing dot register route. So you just use route and route together because I don't know which one is which. And then you can say, hey, you have to give it a name, right? So that's kind of like the name of the route that you want to kind of like use. So that's in this case, let's do the speaker details page. And then you want to specify the type that you actually want to go to, right? So that it knows what page to actually go to. So I can say type of speaker details page. And you know, these can be different. So I can make this something else if you want and make it a magic string. But it kind of like makes sense to have this both the same things, right? Actually, let's see quickly what this comes up with. I'm sorry if I pronounce this completely wrong. Let me see if I can zoom it in. Today, she takes you on a magical journey to explore the power of Blazor. This is the power of AI, right? We've all seen Scott Hanselman say like, you need to do useful stuff with AI. I absolutely did not do that with this. But in my defense, this is the ChatGPT Turbo, whatever, that doesn't take a lot of power. So there's that. So, you know, if you put something in here and you want to know what it generated, because I didn't get as far to show it all, let me know and I'll extract this data before I delete it again. But here you go. Carl, he takes you on a journey through the world of .NET, Blazor, and DevOps. Sounds good. He juggles chainsaws. Well, I want to see that one. All right, cool. So we have this. I think I'm mostly out of time. So we could add a new page. Let's just say that this is the main page again. Let's just do that, just for fun, just to show you at least how to do this. And then you can say like, hey, whenever we are on the main page, you can give this like a grid dot. Actually, there's no real quick way to do this. Gesture recognizers. And you can say tab gesture recognizer. So whenever something is tabbed, and in this case, a whole cell of like the collection view, you can trigger a command, right? So you can trigger some functionality. So what you want to do here is say binding, go to details, command, and we want to say the source, because this is kind of interesting, is a reference to foo. So again, this scope is actually to a speaker, and you don't want to have each speaker object to have this command, right? You just want to have that on the view model. So what I'm going to do is say here, I'm going to name this foo. So what this does, it says, hey, look at the source foo for this actual command, for the view, the binding there, the binding context there, right? So now I can implement that command on the main page view model instead of something else, and I can just do public void go to details. Let's do it like that. Actually, I don't need this. I can do it as a property because that's the power of data binding. Prop command go to details command. And I can say go to details command is new command. And we can actually do our navigation here. So now here I can say shell, that's just your static object that we have right here. Go to, is it navigate to? Oh, not current, thank you. This is all, I paid these guys just to, you know, make them look smart, it's fine. Go to async. And then you can say name of, we need to specify that same route, right? And I made this main page. So we have that thing right here. And now, hopefully if I did everything correctly, you can tap one of the speakers, and it will actually go to our details page, right? That we still have to set up and actually do here. Now, my plan for this whole thing, we're already over time, so I'm going to wrap up really quickly here, is to actually have like a full functioning session conference app. For that conference is kind of like fork. We have a nice .NET MAUI sample if I complete it, and that maybe like conferences like NDC or Sweatdog or Tekorama or whoever kind of like fork their application, slap their styling on there, fill it with their sessionized data, and that, you know, they can use it. So tap. No, it's not working. Okay, it's fine. And then they can actually use it. So if that's something that you're interested in for kind of like your full sample right here, that's on my GitHub, which is called App My Conference. Again, like, you know, if you find me, if you can find any of these things. But this is where I'm gonna build like the fully featured actual app that's hopefully gonna be adopted to a whole bunch of conferences out there. And this has even more than what I showed you today, has the basic functionality. And I have a very fun idea, if I may say so myself, to kind of like make your preferences your favorites. Like in the NDC app, you can also star sessions, right? And only those will show up. I have a nice idea of how to kind of like implement that in a new fun way. So keep your eye on that. Thank you for watching me struggle right here. If you have any questions, come up right here. I'm also have to show you this last slide. You can actually hang out with Microsoft people here at the NDC conference. You can book some one-on-one time with them. There's a link to .NET 9 if you still need to download it. So yeah, thank you so much for coming and enjoy the rest of NDC.